Hello, welcome everybody to session 3, I think, of day 2. Really exciting. Somebody else has said in the chat, I've been busy, barely had time to make a cup of tea. I'm completely with you on that one, Didi. I haven't had need to go and get one. Thank you guys for joining us. We're going to have a panel discussion. Oh, Samuel's just said, do you want me to make you a cup of tea? Oh, no, thank you, darling, because the kettle will be a bit noisy, but that's really sweet. We're going to have a panel discussion on being sustainable on a budget, which I think, is a really big question for lots of people. So without further ado, I will ask our lovely panelists. I'm loving the fact that Lisa is in full festival gear to introduce themselves. So is that your cocktail umbrella? Perfect. Lisa, if you can
sadly it's water, not gin, but
that would be brilliant. Lisa, tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Oh, I'll take the silly hat off. But I might keep this for the duration. I'm quite liking this. So I'm Lisa. I run Less Stuff, and I've recently split it into Less Stuff and Less Waste because it just got too big and unwieldy. Although I think the things kind of combine for me, they make sense to me. It's better now that I've got the 2 websites. So I'm here with my Less Waste hat on, and I write about living sustainably on a budget, which is exactly what we're talking about today. Okay, I'm also a teacher. I teach design thinking. I'm a designer and a ceramicist. That's what I'm doing at the moment.
Wow, many hats, including the festival one you just had on. Claire, over to you.
Oh, hi. I'm Claire. I am a bit like Lisa. I do lots of things. I also work with Lisa quite a lot. We've written some fab books together. And as part of my exciting life, I also try to share what we do as a family. So we sort of blog and share our attempt to be more sustainable from what I hope, like Jen, is from a more realistic point of view than a lot of the things when I was looking. I decided to leave work for a period of time, and that was going to have massive budgetary impacts on our family. And we just took it as an opportunity, I suppose, to think about what else we wanted to change. And we went back to the drawing board, I suppose, of how we wanted to live and what was important to us and all those sorts of things. But everywhere I looked to help live ethically on a budget, I couldn't really find very much. I found you fairly early on, Jen. But I could find lots of really extremist sustainability stuff, which was nowhere near where I was. And just felt overwhelming. And I could find lots of budgety stuff which involves shopping at Poundland and only living with plastic. And I just couldn't find that middle ground that sort of felt like a normal family. So we decided to do it and see what happened. So we're sort of 4 years on now. And I'm back at work and those sorts of things. But it's been really interesting, and I feel we've come a long way, and it's really lovely to share that, because I think it can be overwhelming. You're muted, Jen.
I'm desperately trying to kind of juggle, like trying to copy and paste the emails and the questions from the emails. But Zoe, please tell us that isn't, well, it would be lovely if that was your background and you were in some like lush forest. But let us know, tell us all about you.
So I have a similar story to the one we just heard. So back in 2011, I wanted to quit my job and become a stay-at-home mum. But my husband said to me, well, we've just moved house, we've just had another child, and you like spending more money on eco-friendly and organic products. How are you going to be able to afford for you to quit your job? And I don't think he quite realised what kind of impact that would have on our lives for the next goodness knows how long, because I was like, that's an excellent question. How can I be eco-friendly on a budget? And I started up my blog called Eco Thrifty Living in 2011 to sort of document my journey on how to save money and how to be eco-friendly. And I think I probably did go a little bit far with it all. And I learned quite a lot of lessons about how, there can be such a thing as being too frugal to zero waste, to eco-friendly, and I'm definitely on the same page as Jen with the whole sustainable-ish and imperfect action. I think I absolutely stand behind that message. So however many years on I am now, I've recently, well, last year I wrote a book which is called Eco Thrifty Living. I don't know, can't see it because of the snap background, but no, oh, here we go. If I hold it the right way. Anyway, and that's really funny. It's delayed showing. So, yeah, I've written a book. I now do talks, and I still blog on Eco Thrifty Living. And I run a food waste group because that's a particular interest of mine. As I've sort of gone on, I was just really interested in helping people reduce food waste. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, guys. Zoe, I really want to bookmark that question about, like, there were some things that were too frugal and too eco, because I really want to come back to that to find out what they were. But let's kick off with a kind of a first, she says, a first question, find my document. Do you think sustainable living is more expensive? We're here to kind of discuss that, but we're making an assumption there that it kind of is. Do you think that is the case?
I think that...
Zoe, do you want to go first?
Okay. So I think that sustainable living can save you an awful lot of money, because I saved so much money that I was able to quit my job. But beforehand, sustainable living was costing me a lot of money. So it all depends on your approach.
So yeah, we'll dive into actually how you did kind of do that with the saving money. But yeah, I think it's really interesting, isn't it, that it can be either way, can't it? So yeah, Claire, how about you? How have you found it?
I think initially I would always say to people to not perhaps do the budgeting bit first. So for me, I got better at it when it was a mindset thing that I changed, and when I changed how I thought about things, it kind of flowed better. So I would just change the things you're already doing. So just change your utilities to a green utility thing. You'll probably save money, which is lovely, but that's something you're already doing. And I think if you can start to make those sorts of shifts that actually are your normal patterns anyway, then changing things and thinking about the financial side of it will flow more naturally. I do think it's cheaper actually, because what we found is we do a lot less stuff in a positive sense. I mean that, we just don't buy as much, we don't spend as much on certain things. And also I think you perhaps spend money differently. So even if you're not saving a huge amount, you might be doing different things with the same amount of money. So it's totally about approach, and it's totally about mindset, and I think it doesn't have to be more expensive. Absolutely not.
Keep remembering to unmute myself. Although the children are being very good and quiet. Zoe's just getting some help with her mic, because I think a few people are saying it's a bit difficult to hear. Lisa, what's your take on sustainability on a budget?
Oh, I've been a single parent since my... Oh,
we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, okay. So I've been a single parent since...
Yeah, it's the sound's not catching.
Say again?
There's a delay for some reason. There's a delay for some reason.
But you can hear me?
Oh, you're there.
Okay. So I've been a single parent since since my son was about 2. So that's 15 years, a long time. So we had to live very frugally. So it was more a decision with me as to how can I use the money that we've got, and how can I not do environmentally damaging things with that money. So a lot of it took more time, because we had 60 quid a week and we had to make that work for the 2 of us. And it wasn't easy. I'm going to be very honest about this. It was not an easy time, but it's possible. Little things like if you're in the supermarket and you look at a lower shelf, you might find something wrapped in paper instead of plastic, and it might be cheaper. So it's just a matter of kind of wiggling around your restrictions and your limitations to try and find something that works for you. And making decisions like Claire was saying about, should I go to Poundland and buy it in plastic because it's 5p cheaper, or can I find that somewhere else, somewhere locally, somewhere more ethically sourced? So there's a trade-off. but it's not impossible. I think if I had all the money in the world, I'd go to a zero waste shop and I'd fill up my beautiful pots with zero waste things, and I'd have it delivered by bicycle. But that's not the case. I go to Tesco's, but I do what I can within our means, and I look for the most ethical solutions within what I can do.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, this is where the ish comes in, isn't it? And it's very much around, we can't make the perfect decision every single time, and everyone's going to have different circumstances and different challenges, and it's about making better decisions more of the time when we can. But yeah, no. Oh, hello, Head. So why do you think there is this perception then that sustainable living is more expensive? Lisa, we'll go to you because you were first time, so we'll go to you first.
I think it's quite a middle class thing. Basically, I mean, we're all white middle class people. It really is. I've got Muslim friends who are also very passionate about the environment, about trying to be as eco-friendly and to reduce their waste. But they're not as public as we are. We're more kind of out about it and talking about it. So it's perceived as being a white middle class thing that people in cities do, unless you live in the country and you have a few chickens. So it doesn't have to be like that. It's actually cheaper for me to get vegetables delivered in season than it is for me to buy them at the supermarket. You know, if you eat meat, it's cheaper to get meat from your local butcher or your farmer's market, and it will be of a better quality than it would be to get it from a supermarket. So there's quite a few ideas that we've got. It's really hard for businesses with narrow margins. I don't know where that. We'll talk about that in a minute. I don't know where that features in. Sorry, that's thrown me. I don't understand that.
Ignore the chat. I'll look after the chat.
So it's not impossible to be eco-friendly on a very small budget. I've done it. I'm self-employed. My income is varied and it fluctuates, and I wing it, but it's not impossible. We do our best. I still sometimes fail, and the thing I really fail at is the produce section in the supermarket, because I tend to plan my meals around that. So the produce section is always wrapped in plastic,
but you're saving food waste. So
there's your balance. You know, it's it's a fine line, and you've got to work out where you are with it. I'm not going to be pious about it, and I'm not going to beat myself up if I fail.
Yeah.
You know, if I don't manage, especially with the restrictions we've got with lockdown, if I don't manage to get something as environmentally friendly as I can manage within my budget, then I am not going to beat myself up, because overall I've done the best.
And this comes back to, you know, Ray did a session for us yesterday about values and things, and you know, like so we'll each have our personal values hierarchy almost. So, you know, some people will put food waste at the top, some people put plastic at the top, and you know, and that's a completely personal decision. Claire, how about you? You were nodding along to a lot of that.
Well, I think a lot of the perception of the money thing is quite cultural. And I think a lot of people wouldn't wear secondhand clothes, wouldn't you know, ask to borrow things or swap instead of buy, because they would perceive that to be them somehow expressing that they weren't doing very well financially, or that they weren't successful in some way. Whereas I couldn't give two hoots about that. So I don't think I've ever bought new clothes for my kids. You know, we've been to weddings and I've had to borrow stuff because my kids just don't have smart shirts or pretty dresses unless we've made them, and my mum makes them dresses, and that's lovely. Because that, for me, I don't personally make the connection between my children wearing secondhand clothes and me being unsuccessful in some way as a parent. I do think I'm unsuccessful in some ways, but that isn't one of them. And so I think culturally there's been this difficulty around, you know, there is an awful lot of ethical, sustainable products that are massively expensive, that very posh people like to sort of go, oh yes, I'm sustainable because I have this thing, and that's lovely. And if that works for you, I'd like them to crack on with that. But I think back on planet Earth, there's different ways to do it than just buying some of those products. I also have a massive problem with the fact that our attitude towards the cost of things has become so skewed by big business. So because we think £1 for a t-shirt is a normal price, because we've had that sort of cultural shift where that feels like a normal price, then £10 for a t-shirt does feel the most ridiculous amount of money, because we've had this skewed experience. Whereas actually the £10 is probably the more realistic amount of money to have a quality garment that will last more than 3 washes and has been produced by somebody who, you know, has a roof over their head and relatively safe practices. And so I think we've got a really skewed version of what things cost and what they should cost. And yeah, I think a lot of it's cultural rather than purely financial.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely, I think, the sort of cultural aspect of it. It's like, I'm like you, I don't have any kind of issue with going into the charity shops and that sort of thing, but I'm in my safe middle class bubble. But for a lot of people, maybe on lower incomes and things, there might be almost that kind of stigma that they're sort of signaling to their neighbours and friends and family that, you know, actually we are really kind of struggling here. I don't, you know, there's also then the kind of the middle class, oh, I don't go in charity shops. So there is an awful lot of stigma around it all, isn't there? Zoe, how are you getting on with your sound and your mic?
Well, I can't work it out, so I hope it's all right.
Yeah, we can hear you.
How's it sounding?
Yeah, it's good. So yeah, your thoughts on
I mean,
sort of why sustainability is.
Why
go on.
is expensive?
Yes, yeah.
I think it's down to greenwashing. It's just sort of people think that they can charge more for a sustainable product, and so people get advertised sustainable products, and they see that they're more expensive, and then they sort of put 2 and 2 together and think that sustainability is more expensive. But my whole journey kind of started by sort of recognizing greenwashing and realizing that I was buying into it and spending a lot of money on it, and that actually the genuinely eco-friendly options are often a lot less expensive. And I also buy clothes from charity shops for my children and have absolutely no problem with it. And I guess where I live in Brighton, you know, we've got loads of brilliant charity shops, and lots of people would wear secondhand stuff, and it's almost quite normal. So it's kind of hard to imagine what it's like outside of that bubble, but I can imagine sort of where I grew up in other areas where people perhaps wouldn't feel comfortable about going into charity shops. But I've definitely become comfortable with it, and it's where I would shop out of preference. And I think there's so many advantages to it, because every time you buy something from a charity shop, you're also giving money to charity, which is brilliant, and you're saving something from landfill. And I think that anybody who felt that there was a stigma about buying in a charity shop, well, nobody else needs to know that you bought from it, do they? And because there's so many cheap and clothes on the market, and because people are cycling through their wardrobes really quickly, there's, you know, a lot of the stuff in charity shops is fairly new.
Yeah, definitely. And really interesting, actually. Diz said up there, her dad wouldn't allow them to have secondhand clothes, and I wonder if that was a generational thing and if that's changing. And I think as well, there's a lot to do with, because we live in such a consumer society, and you know, the answer to everything is to buy something. So if we want to be more eco-friendly, we go and buy the best eco-friendly reusable coffee cup, or we go and buy the bamboo cutlery to take out with us, when actually we've got a fork and a spoon in our drawer that we could take with us. And it is that mindset, isn't it? We're so brainwashed to buy. Every time we start a new hobby, every time we start a new job, every time we start a new school, we you know, a new term at school or a new school year. Does anyone remember the thrill of going and getting a new pencil case and you know, a pencil and a shiny rubber? And you know, that is just how we're kind of brainwashed into all this buying stuff. So the quote, you know, one of the things I love to say is, you know, the most sustainable version of anything is the thing you've already got. So actually living sustainably and you know, really one of the things we're all facing up to a bit at the moment is really making use of the things that we've already got, of the food we've already got, the clothes we've already got in our wardrobes. And interesting, I think Claire and Zoe were both saying, you know, this almost sort of reset period where you you know, where you had your children and were sort of looking at how you could move forwards on less money, or, you know, we've kind of got that opportunity now to stop and think, how can we do things differently, which so I think it's going to be interesting times as we kind of start to move out of this. But are there any things that you're prepared to spend, that you are prepared to spend a bit more on? Claire, do you want to go first on that?
Ooh, I think some of it is sort of luck, if you know what I mean, as into who you are as a person. So I'm not a handbag person, I'm not a shoe person. So there's certain things that that would bring great joy to somebody that aren't for me, and they happen to be often quite expensive items. So I feel quite lucky in that, you know, I can buy a book and it's a relatively cheap item, and that bring me all the joy of a more expensive item, and that's just luck, isn't it, really? I think we've always been, and I've been with my husband for a ridiculous amount of time. I think we're both savers. I think we're quite similar financially in how we sort of view the world, and I think that's helpful. I hear lots of people, if you have different financial behaviours, that's a, you know, one of you saving every penny and the other one, you know, isn't, and I think that's tricky. But so I think we're naturally more savings. I think we have come to a place in life, and I don't know if this was just age, frankly, where we would much rather now have something we really wanted and wait for it than have the sort of cheap alternative right now. And so I think we have just sort of grown old and got into this place where we're happy to save and have something we really want. The only thing probably I spend more on than I should, and it's happening even more now just because of my personal situation, is takeaways. I think that's the one thing I could completely ditch and would be better for the whole world, but I'm not.
No, and that's, you know, that's where it's also balancing the budget and the planet and the kind of self-care aspect as well, isn't it? There's no point us all being kind of completely burnt out and miserable and resentful. We've got to have our, and you are more than allowed your takeaways. Please, you don't need permission from me. But Lisa, how about you? Is there anything you
look at cost per day. So this is an expensive pair of glasses. They're reactor light, they're bifocal, varifocal. You know, I got protective lenses. They cost me the same amount of money, but they're going to last a year at least, and every day they cost me maybe 50p. So look at if you were buying a decent winter coat, and you're going to wear it every day for 3 months, you can then justify spending a reasonable amount of money on it. I think what we've lost, what we don't do anymore, is delayed gratification. If we want something, we buy it. Click, click, and we've got it. You know, we don't wait for anything anymore. And I think that there's a lot of value in actually saving up for something because you want it really badly. So
yeah, and you know, I think so often because we can just get exactly what we want when we want it.
Yeah.
By the time it arrives, you're like,
yeah.
You know, whereas if you have to wait for it and save for it, you know you really want it.
So this is another divide between people with money and people without. I can afford to spend £8.50 on rice like that, which in the long term saves me money, and in the long term uses less plastic because I've got one big bag instead of lots of little bags. But that's because I've got £8.29 in my pocket to go and spend.
Yes. It is that upfront cost, isn't it? Yeah,
yeah.
I agree.
Upfront cost. Yeah.
But what
you can buy in bulk.
I discovered.
Go on, Claire.
What I discovered is, so for a birthday gift for my 30th birthday, I asked for a pair of vegetarian Doc Martens from a shop in Brighton, which my in-laws bought for me. Now, it was more money than I would ever spend on a pair of shoes, but I still have those boots. They are still going fine, and I'm now 45 this year, I think. And so what I did, because I didn't buy those and I knew that they would last but not forever, is I've put £1 a month away since then. Now I have quite a lot of money for when I do want a pair of shoes. So I think it's an upfront cost, but then that product should last you long enough that you can save ready for when it needs replacing or whatever. So it's kind of getting yourself in the rhythm of making the long-term saving, and that takes a little juggling to get to that place.
Claire, do you use that app that takes the like 2p off everything you spend, or rounds it up or something and then saves?
No, I don't. I am an old-fashioned glass jar kind of girl. Yeah, which is probably not financially very sensible because it would earn interest and things like that. But I think those apps are quite useful. I know lots of people who use them and are really impressed by them. Yeah, just sort of rounding up all those odd pennies and things. Yeah, I get that. Brilliant.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Lisa. I think it's very easy to trot out the buy less, buy better mantra, but if you're on a really tight budget, you don't have the money available to pay that upfront cost for the more expensive thing. So I guess that is where if there is any pounds, or as you say, the sort of rounding up the 2p's and things that you can squirrel away for those rainy day moments. Lisa, do you have a name for any of those apps? Somebody's asking.
I don't know. I wonder if I was asking Claire did actually. She's my money expert.
Yes, I know some of those apps. Brilliant. Zoe, how about you?
Well, I would spend more money on like really good quality items that are going to last, and bulk buying. And I do, like, I know what you were just saying about how not everybody has the money for those things. But we do sort of, like, this isn't something I really write about on my blog, but we even out our cash flow across the year. So we would always take any costs and split them into monthly costs. So even if we were only going to pay it once a year, we would calculate it across the year and put money away every month for yearly costs. And that's really helps us to be able to make big purchases, one-off purchases, because we even out our cash flow. And also you could like bulk together, join together with other people to bulk buy food. The other thing that I would spend money on is just anything that I particularly like, because I think the benefits of being thrifty and saving money is that you can then spend more on things that you enjoy, and they don't necessarily have to be the most cost-effective things. It could be, a day at a spa, but it's something that you love and that you enjoy. So that's what I would spend more money on. It's not all about never spending money. It's about not spending money on things that are bad for the environment, not spending money on things that are purely just going to waste, like food waste or energy waste or water waste. They're just things that you spend money on that you get no value from. So there's, those are just brilliant savings to make. It's just a complete win-win situation when you save money on things that you didn't really need. But then I think the benefit of having that other money is to be able to spend some money to enjoy the money that you do have and spend it on the things that you do like.
Have any of you been disciplined enough to put the money aside that you have saved? Like when we spent our year buying nothing new, my kind of rough estimate was we saved £2,000. And had we put that money aside every time we didn't buy a birthday present, or we didn't, we bought something secondhand instead of new, it would have been really lovely to have that lump sum left at the end to then go on holiday or to do something with. Has any of you ever been disciplined enough to actually do that? Go for it, Lisa.
Well,
hold on. Go on, say again.
So I do it the other way around. Money goes into one account, and then out of that account, I draw out what I need to pay for things. So my monthly expenses come out of that. So as long as I don't touch what goes into the main account, that's building up savings all the time. Yeah, because I'm living within my means, because I'm not.
Yeah.
I've never gone on holiday.
So then
it just mounts up, because always in the bank account is slightly more. I've always saved 10% of my income, even if we've been on the crazy low amount, always like that, just by keeping it in one account and just never touching it. So it's a 2-account system. It works really well. Recommend it.
Oh, that's a really good idea. Has anybody, either Zoe or Claire, do you kind of, I know Claire, you said you've got your pound a month that you're putting in for your boots. Is there any other sort of, you physically think, well, I haven't bought the kids new school uniform, I've bought them second-hand school uniform, and that saved me X amount of money? Like, do either of you do anything like that?
I don't particularly do it like that, because we just live within our means. So we've always made sure that we live within our means, and then anything left over we would put into savings, and that's always been the case. So we wouldn't specifically say, oh, well, I didn't spend this much money on that, so I'm going to put it into savings.
it feels like quite an old-fashioned concept now, doesn't it? Living within your means. It's something that we, in the same way as saving for something, you know, saving up for a big item or something. It feels like something we've grown out of almost, and we need to get back in touch with. Claire, is there any other things that you sort of put money aside for specifically, apart from your boots?
And again, it's all about, you know, personal values, isn't it, and what's important to your family. So we're not big car people, you know, those sorts of things don't matter to us. But what we really value is a family holiday. We only holiday in the UK, but we always stay somewhere. We haven't gone hot tub luxury yet, but we always stay in a cottage as opposed to we have done the whatever they're called, that, you know, the Butlins and Others Exist type of thing. We have done that. Our preference, if we can manage it, is to stay in a cottage, just us. So that's something that we save for. That's something that's really important to us to try and do every year. And we've also shifted, and this is what I mean about mindset, because I think, so we went to our kids a couple of years ago, and we save up for Christmas. I'm a big Christmas fan. I love it. And I looked at this sum of money and I said, oh, well, that's actually, you know, we're going to split this at that time between 6 of us, plus we give little gifts to grandparents and things. And we're going to buy quite a lot of rubbish, really, essentially. We're going to buy quite a lot of tat with this. And I said to the kids, look, maybe we could do something different with this pot of money. And my daughter very wisely said, could we go on holiday with that money? And we could. We had a cottage for a week, and that's what we do every New Year now. We don't have Christmas presents. We didn't this year, and we didn't. This is the 3rd year that we book a cottage for a week. So instead of 6 of us all having Christmas presents and giving to each other, that's what we do instead. Food would be about the same as if we were at home, because we only self-cater. And I think it's that kind of it's looking at money and thinking, this is a sum of money, and what would I like to do with it? And I fully appreciate, you know, I work with people who are on 0 hours contracts and are totally on the breadline, and I've supported people even within that setting who have been able to make different choices with the same money, but make different choices. And I think you know, it's about finding the support to allow you a space to get your head in a space to do that, which is really hard.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
have Christmas 2 days later now, because it means I can go and buy all the Christmas stuff for a quarter of the price. Because it doesn't matter to me what day it is. It really doesn't matter. And, you know, I like Christmas cake and I like Christmas pudding, and I'd rather spend 50p on it than £3.50. So,
and does your son mind?
Huh?
Does your son mind?
Not at all, no. And this year for presents, because, you know, we've got enough stuff. So what I did was, over the year, I bought useful things and I wrapped them up that we both might like. Like, I got a nice USB stick and some nice pens and just things and some socks. You know, there's new socks are like the biggest treat. They're lovely. And I wrapped them up and I put numbers on them, and we drew numbers. And so we both got a surprise, but we both got something we actually needed. Yeah. And it didn't cost very much. And I don't invest in the crazy that is Christmas. I just don't do it. So boycott Christmas, save money.
Zoe, back to what you said at the beginning. You discovered that there were some things that were too thrifty, too eco, and you had to sort of rein yourself in a bit. Give us a couple of examples.
Well, so towards the beginning of my journey, I did a year of eco challenges, and I also did things like plastic free July, and I tried to go as plastic free as possible. And I didn't wash my hair for about a year with shampoo, and I didn't use toilet paper for a month.
I remember the new paper challenge.
I'm not going to tell you. I did not use paper. I didn't use towels. So they just didn't really work for me in the long run. I think now, with zero waste shops and lots more zero waste products, there are much more practical replacements for things. And now I use shampoo bars, and, you know, I've tried out toothpaste tablets, and there's just loads of good products on the market, some of which are worth investing in because they'll save you money over time. And if you buy them, you know, you've got to shop around for deals and that kind of thing. But yeah, so I think on the eco side, I realised I don't want to be entirely plastic free because it's far too stressful. It means that we can't necessarily get all the types of food that we want, like frozen peas or crisps, and it's not sustainable in the long run. And then on the money saving side as well, I think that probably to do with my blog really, I was like, I'm not going to spend money on anything for my blog, or I'm not going to spend money on things like that because I'm trying to save money. And I think what I realised is sometimes spending money can get you further and faster than not spending money. So I kind of realised that you shouldn't just never spend money. You should spend money when it makes sense to do so.
And kind of on that point, and this question came into my mind, Lisa, when you were talking. Do you think there's always a payoff of either time or money?
Definitely. I think I actually wrote an article about that on my blog a while ago. Was it money as a coupon for your time? So it is a choice. Yeah. It's either your time or your money. And I think sometimes it is definitely worth spending the money because somebody else can do it better than you and they can do it faster than you, and it will get you to where you want to be and benefit you more in the long run. So it's sort of, when do you make those choices, and when do you decide that it is worth spending the money, and when do you decide that it isn't?
Yeah, Lisa, how about you on that one?
Just going back to the plastic, I don't think plastic is the big baddie that it's been made out to be. Plastic is an incredible resource. We wouldn't be talking without plastic. We wouldn't have any means of transport without plastic. The trouble is, it's the disposable plastic that's not the greatest thing. So I saw once on, I think it was on a Facebook group, someone said, I'm going to throw away all my plastic razors and buy an eco-friendly one. You're really not getting this, are you? So plastic is an amazing resource, and I think we need to learn how to use it in a way that is more sustainable, which might save us from the crazy of buying all these eco-friendly things.
Yeah.
That's my kind of take on plastic. I think it's an amazing resource.
I mean, we actually, we absolutely need to spend money. We need to keep, all these lovely small businesses that our friends run and that we run, all of the authors we support, all of the, our kids need school uniform. We absolutely have to spend money. I think it's about really hunkering down, and this is my background. It sort of spurs me on to do this more. Actually going right back to basics, right back to the bones of who you are, what's important to you, how you want to live, and trying to take however long that might need to really get to that. Because I think once we know that, once we have those values and they support us and help us and guide us, and we decide not to buy a whole raft of things that we actually don't give two stuffs about, but we decide when we do make a purchase, when we do spend that money, we feel really good about it, really happy about it. It's supporting an infrastructure, or it's supporting a local community, supporting a friend, a family member running a business. So we absolutely need to spend money, or the nation won't survive, as but I think it's what we spend and where we spend it that's that sort of process, part of the process of becoming more sustainable.
I think boycotting Nestle must have saved me millions over the years, because Nestle own everything and I won't buy any of it. So it's just a complete no in my head now. I'm so used to doing it. And I check what else Nestle own quite often. So hopefully
it's scary, isn't it?
Scan it for their little logo on things. So I'm saving from all the crappy chocolate and all the bottles of water. Can't buy it. Job done.
Yeah, it's so interesting because that kind of theme around really going back to basics, really going back to your values and your why and your purpose has come up so many times already this week, and it's actually, we're so busy, aren't we? And at the moment a lot of us have been sort of forced to stop unless we decide to run an online festival. But we're so constantly on this sort of treadmill, and convenience is convenient because we're so busy. And actually, if we get a chance to just stop and regroup and think about how we very consciously want to move forward, and maybe that's one of the opportunities we can take out of the current situation. But can you each share a couple of your kind of top tips or top swaps or for sort of being sustainable on a budget? Claire, do you want to go first?
Oh my goodness, that was an unexpected one. Top tips: use what you have. Don't buy new. Save up, and buy small, shop small.
You have totally scuppered everyone else now for anything.
Yes, I'll take them all.
Yeah. Lisa's shaking her head, so she's got loads more. Go for it, Lisa.
Oh, eat local and eat in season. And there's no need to be eating strawberries in December. They taste disgusting and they cost a fortune. Just eat what is local, and it will be cheap and there'll be loads of it. And then free stuff if you get fed up with it. That's my one big, frugal, ethical, resourceful tip. Eat local, eat seasonal.
Love it. Zoe, how about you?
I would say make the most of what you have available to you, and that's not just what's in your home. So it's not just the stuff that you own, it's the places you can visit in your local area, it's other people's rubbish on Freegal or FreeCycle, like they're talking about in the messages. And it's also your skills. Make the most of your skills, your family skills. You know, if you're great at baking or DIY or playing the piano, you know, just make the most of everything that you have and get the most out of it, because there's so much value in that you probably don't realise.
Brilliant. Yeah, and you just said about Freegal. Somebody's mentioned Freegal in the chat. I think they had stopped because of coronavirus, but I think I had an email from them on Friday saying they've restarted again. So if you haven't heard of Freegal, or you're not in your local Freegal group, have a look on Ecosia on the eco-friendly search engine and have a look. Lisa's mentioned Too Good To Go, which is an app where Lisa's hoolering for us, which is an app where. Go on, yeah, go for it, Claire.
My biggest message from my own experience is start wherever you're at. Yes. I think it's very easy to watch people that are 2 or 3 years down the line and have so much knowledge and so much learning and think that, you know, you're just going to do it all overnight. But actually, you know, for most of us, it's taken us a while to get to this point where we can confidently, you know, share good ideas. And I think wherever you're at, you can do one thing, just one little thing, and that will build. You know, it's not an overnight process.
Yeah, it's definitely a marathon, not a sprint, isn't it? And it's all, you know, don't that whole thing about, you know, don't compare other people's outsides to your insides or something, or other people's end of chapter to your beginning. And it's completely, you know, start where you are. Recognize as well that you've got different circumstances. We've all got different budgetary constraints. We've all got different challenges in our families and things. And so your solution isn't going to be someone else's solution, and that's absolutely kind of okay. Lisa, you raised your hand like a very good schoolgirl there.
I'm used to this now. So Claire and I have written loads and loads of books and resources. One of them, the summer one, isn't it? Claire has got 30 different things you can do that are eco-friendly, and most of them are local and you can do around the home. But we also have done challenges. So we had a cozy challenge. What else have we done? There's all sorts, but you need to, if you look at our websites, there's going to be an awful lot of ideas. And adding on to what Claire's saying, I say, if you fail at something, if you cock up, it doesn't matter, because you can't ever move forwards unless you fail.
Yes.
So don't beat yourself up. Don't try to be perfect, because that's silly.
And it doesn't exist anyway, yeah. Guys, pop your links and stuff. I'll get you to say them all in a minute, but pop your links into the chat, and pop your the links to your books and everything, because Zoe's got the book and you guys have got those amazing seasonal books and loads of resources that the two of you have come up with together. I'm just going to have a quick look at the questions. How do we break out of the white middle class bubble? I suspect that most of the people here are already trying to do their best to live sustainably, and this is the session we had at 11 was about, you know, how do we take sustainability mainstream? And I don't think we really came up with an answer. Have you guys got any thoughts on that, Lisa?
Yeah, sorry, thank you. I think it's I think because sustainability is in the news a lot more, I think it's becoming a little bit it's less middle class bubble. So I think give it a little while and it will start to become more kind of prevalent everywhere. Like schools are becoming more eco-friendly in what they're doing, and if the kids are doing it, then the adults will do it. So it's, you know, it will just move on. What's a scrap store? Yeah, speak to someone who's a white middle class. Well, I have been. I live in inner city Bristol, so I live in the Muslim quarter, and you know, I work with people from many different nationalities and different ethoses and different religions, and I can see that they're now starting as a whole to think about more eco-friendliness. And in fact, one of my Muslim friends is looking at doing her own eco-waste female-only delivery kind of service. So it is happening. It's just that she would not come up here and have her face on camera. She just wouldn't do it. So I can speak for her. A scrap store.
I think you have to live it.
Scrap store. She doesn't know what a scrap store is. I'm just going to tell her. Scrap store is the most amazing
The most
thing.
exciting places.
My whole house is full of scrap store. A scrap store is a business that collects waste, useful clean waste from companies, and then sells it to people who can make stuff with it. So it sells it to schools and colleges and creatives and people who teach kids. If you've got a scrap store near you, please go and visit it. They are the best places in the world.
And Katie is Katie who said, you know, find your local scrap store. I can't remember your official title, Katie, but she's something to do with like Scrap Store Central. So maybe Katie can pop a link into their main site for people to come and find. Claire, you wanted to come in on that about the white sort of middle class.
I think you have to live it, but I think one of the problems we have, and I am aware I'm a white middle-aged middle class person, is that it's often come across as very preachy and inaccessible outside of that bubble, and so I don't actually talk a lot about what I do at the school gates, for example. I just do it, and then it's surprising how often people then talk to you, and that's your opportunity to share an idea or to say why you've done it a certain way. So for example, the way I pack my kids' packed lunches is often a topic, and people will say, oh, you know, where did you get that from, or why do you do it that way? And that's an opportunity for me to say, well, we're trying to reduce our plastic, and so we've opted to try this instead, and this is our discovery, you know, this is what's worked and this is what hasn't. And that's just a really natural and organic way of sort of, if I live it and I'm proud of it, and I'm happy to talk when asked, but I don't stand, you know, I don't wear my I'm a vegan and you're not, so you're bad t-shirt to school. I think it's about accessibility and just being more open perhaps about where it doesn't work and where it's not easy, and those sorts of things. And I think if we live it and we're really comfortable in our own skin of what we're doing, then people will see that and hopefully want to get involved if we're doing things that look interesting.
Yeah. Zoe, had you got any thoughts on this this kind of white middle class community? Or I don't know how, you know, it is I'm very aware of that, and I know Extinction Rebellion have had that kind of leveled against them as well. How do you think we can make it more accessible?
Did you say Zoe?
Yes, sorry.
Oh, sorry. It's just really bad on my mic. To be honest, I don't really feel qualified to answer that. I think, you know, you have to go and speak to some people in those communities, and maybe, I think there was one of the comments, one of the comments says we helped a mosque in Birmingham save 40,000 plastic bottles over Ramadan last year from just a 10-minute chat at the community centre. So I think maybe it's the bubble that we're in, and there's other bubbles going on that we don't know about.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. So somebody's saying they decided to only buy from charity shops post-lockdown, given the vast amount of income they're losing. Interested to hear the comment. They only sell 30% of stuff, and the rest kind of dumped overseas. I think I'll come to you guys as to what you think about that. There was a statistic, I think it's in a book called Clothing Poverty, about clothes, and saying, you know, that it's quite a small proportion of our clothes that are donated to charity shops. Our assumption is they're sold locally within our local communities, and actually a lot, you know, there's this sort of $1 billion trade in secondhand textiles that exists now, and actually the third world countries are becoming overwhelmed by it. Claire's got a really good Claire's got something to say. Go on, Claire.
I don't know if Claire Aston from Together Street is part of the festival, but if she's not, I'd love to hear from her. She's a fascinating person. I interviewed her. I'll see if I can find the link to the interview with her. She lives in Rwanda. She runs a company with her sister around clothing, sustainable clothing. And Rwanda is one of the countries that have now refused secondhand clothing from other nations because they were flooded with it, and it completely wrecked their own fabric and garment industries, which are now hoping to get back on their feet. I think it is a massive issue, and I think it's a very simple thing to say, oh, well, I take my clothes to a charity shop and therefore I'm living sustainably. And as all of us get more into these topics, we discover there's very little that's simple about any of them, really. Even my bamboo cup isn't as wonderful as I thought it was. And I think that, I mean, I personally don't tend to shop in charity shops. we have a kind of local community where we swap and share based on schools, so kids of similar ages and sizes and hand-me-downs and that kind of thing. I don't think secondhand necessarily has to mean charity shops, and I think that we need to be thoughtful, I suppose, about all of these processes and where we can do better.
Yeah, and
I just want to say,
go on, Zoe.
Oh, sorry, just reading that comment from Claire about my concern is if we only buy from charity, will we get an even worse economy recession, etc. And I think when I started out on my journey and I started like upcycling people's cards that they gave me and gave them back to them, I think that was one of people's first questions. Well, if we all do this, we're all going to go bust. But I think we're not necessarily all going to do this. I think that maybe a large proportion of us are going to do this, and a charity shop is kind of the because we have so much waste, we have so much to use up, we're not in a position where we need to go out and buy really good quality garments if you're on a budget, but people who can afford it can go out and buy those really good quality garments, and ideally that's where we would all be. We would only be producing really good quality, long lasting stuff, and we would all have to save up for it, or else when we did get to it secondhand, it would last long enough to be good quality for secondhand sale. But I don't think you're going to have everybody always living like that, because there will always be people who will want to buy things new and who will want to buy things first hand. Sorry.
Yeah. No, really, really good points, and completely lost track of what I was going to say about it. I think people in the local economy, so like Claire said, these local swapping groups, Free Girl, Helen's just mentioned about clothes switches and swaps, you know, so that we know it's going directly to somebody in our own sort of local economy. And I think, you know, it's become very easy to overconsume and to sort of pass that, to use the charity shops as a kind of panacea for our guilt, and just say, well, it's okay because I've got all this clothes, but I just pass them on to the charity shop. And, you know, if it's stuff that you wouldn't wear again or that can't be reused, they're not going to be able to do anything with it. And also, you know, at our school, we have a secondhand uniform service. Loads of the parents are really happy to donate their uniform to the secondhand service. Very, very few of them will buy from it. So do you know, like, we need to be prepared to buy this stuff back again from the charity shops as well if we're donating to them. Otherwise, they just get kind of overrun with it. Lisa, we haven't come to you on that one. Have you got anything?
Worriedly watching my battery.
Oh, definitely. You're gonna have to anyway, but yeah.
Yeah. I tend not to buy anything from charity shops because I will only buy natural fibres, and charity shops tend to be full of, you know, polyester, and I won't buy it because it's horrible. That is my vegetable box delivery, so you're going to have to talk to someone else while I get that. Sorry.
That's just showing off.
I have total envy of Lisa's couch. Does anybody else have total envy of the
on the sort of like donating to charity shop thing?
Yeah, go on.
Pardon?
Go on, Zoe, sorry.
Sorry, no, I was just saying you're completely right about charity shops being overwhelmed with our donations, and that I think I actually went and interviewed a charity shop manager about this, and asked, and because I wrote a blog post about, is it okay to haggle in a charity shop, because charity shops can be quite expensive, and there was quite a lot of controversy over that. And I went and spoke to a charity shop manager, and it is something ridiculous. A very large percentage of our clothes are donated overseas, and the overseas don't want them because there's so many of them now. And so really, we need to just buy less and make things last, don't we? That Vivienne Westwood, buy well, buy less, buy well, make it last.
Yeah, definitely. And the last question in the question thing was, do any of the panel use an ethical bank like Triodos? And it's my pledge for this week to switch, because it's been on my list forever, and I'm encouraging everyone to make a switch and make a pledge for it. So it's my pledge to switch this week. Is anybody else with Triodos? Lisa is. Brilliant. Well done.
Yeah, we do. It's one of the, and that's what I mean about when you start, just do whatever you're ordinarily doing and just swap it, because that's a really easy place to start. You're not actually changing anything fundamental in your life. You're just swapping what you're already doing for a better alternative, if you can. Usually those things don't cost you any money, and quite often they'll save you money. So certainly our utilities, we saved money. And I think that's a really easy place to start. You know, Ecosia, not Google, all of these little things that won't make any great impact sort of in terms of putting you off making change, but they do build, and then you go, oh, I've done that, what's next? And so when we started, we tried to do one thing a month was our aim, to sort of change one thing a month, or tackle one thing a month, or buy something differently one thing a month. And now we're up to more than a month. You know, we can do more in a month because we're on that roll, and our mindset is different, and we've already done quite a lot. So, you know, the options of what to do next feel more doable because they're not such huge shifts from where we started. So I think things like that are totally the way to start. Just shift one thing that you're already doing onto a more sustainable option.
Yeah, somebody in my session that I did yesterday was talking about, I think it was the commitment curve, and the idea that, you know, that often the first thing is the hardest thing to do, and once you've done that, you have that momentum and motivation to carry on and do the next thing. Go on, Lisa.
I think especially when it's so overwhelming and there's a sort of green panic, you know, how can I possibly convert my house into an eco-friendly one? You wouldn't know where to start. But if you start with going to your normal supermarket and looking around your shelf to see if there's a paper wrapped alternative, or something in a tin, or something in a bottle that can be recycled, you've made one step in the right direction. It's only by making little tiny steps, like Claire said, that you can find something that will actually work for you.
Yeah, definitely. And somebody's asking in the chat about sort of banks and their impacts and things. We've got a session, somebody's saying it's tomorrow, who knows the schedule better than I do, with Becky from Good With Money. So the Good With Money website is a really good one to check out, and also Ethical Consumer Magazine, as Kerry has said. Wow, guys, this is just like, I could talk to you guys for hours. I think we could just natter endlessly and solve, you know, put the world to rights. Thank you so much. So many great comments in the chat. The replay will be available on this link when as soon as we've finished. Dida's asked if I can put a summary of links into my Facebook group. I will struggle, I think, time-wise at the moment, Dida, but I will do my best. Guys, do you just want to? You've popped your links into the chat, haven't you? We'll just go round in a circle and do a thing of where we can find you on social media. Zoe, do you want to go first?
Oh, sorry, I missed that.
Do you want to just let us know where we can find you on social media?
All right. Yeah, I'm on @EcoThrifty on Twitter and Instagram, and I have a Facebook page. And if you look up Reduce Your Food Waste UK, I have a Facebook group all about reducing food waste. And I'm also on Pinterest. Brilliant. So EcoThrifty or EcoThrifty Living everywhere. And
we can find your book on your website?
Yeah, and it's for sale on Amazon.
Brilliant. Lovely. Claire, how about you?
Yeah, I'm a key worker. I've got to go. This was my lunch hour.
Oh, thank you.
I'm running off the house. If you go to the website, all of the social media links are on there, but our Facebook page is probably the most active, and we have a challenge every month. So this month is Motivational May. So yeah, we try to keep it quite lively. All of the books with Lisa are on the website, or Lisa's website, or the Big's on, if you shop that way.
Oh, thank you for giving up your lunch hour for us. Lisa, how about you?
You're most welcome.
Okay, Jen, this has just been amazing. I'm so impressed with what you've done this week. We're only on day 2, and I'm so honoured to be part of it. It's been amazing. Thank you. You can find me on Less Stuff or on Less Waste, or you can Google Less Stuff, Less Waste, and you'll probably get the Facebook page, which holds everything together. And I'm on Pinterest and LinkedIn and Twitter and all that. Instagram, you know, if you like pictures of cats, check out my Instagram, because it's
brilliant. What I'll do, guys, is I'll pop the link to this chat in the Facebook group, in the festival Facebook group, and then if Lisa, Zoe, or Claire, if you think of any useful links, obviously pop the links to your websites. If you think of any useful links of the stuff we've chatted about, we'll keep them on that thread for this chat, and then hopefully that'll be a way for people to come and find them as well. But if you click the replay, all these links you'll be able to see all the chat and be able to see the links as well, guys. So thank you. We've overrun, and I knew we would, but thank you guys for your time and your expertise. It's been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen.